My name's Sarah Donnelley. I graduated St Catherine's in 2008. My mum had also gone to an independent girls' school and had a really amazing experience with her education. And we lived locally in Bondi Junction, and it just seemed to be the right fit. And so I started here in kindergarten, and I was lucky enough to be here all the way to year 12. What I remember about was actually walking in with one of my oldest friends. She and I had been in playgroup together as 2-year-olds and have actually gone right through all of our education, ending up at Sydney University at the same time, and I've recently been overseas to her wedding. So what I remember mostly about this place is the relationships, the connection, and what some of the values and attitudes that are instilled in me through the amazing staff and educators and people I got the privilege of learning from here. My favourite teacher, the list just goes on and on and on. I could probably almost tell you one from every year of my schooling, in all honesty. Some key standouts: Mrs. Jenny Birrell, the most amazing music teacher that anyone could ever ask for. I was just so lucky. She brought so much joy into my life. As an educator now, I've actually used so many of the tools, the songs, the activities that she used with me. So she was such an important part of my life. She built confidence, she got me up on the stage. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have sung in the way that I did on the stage, and that was such an important part of who I am as a person. Miss Comport, who I was lucky enough to have in kindergarten and then in year 4. Mrs. Rollinson ignited a passion for Shakespeare and literacy and a love of the arts that I'm completely indebted to. Miss Edgecombe, who was my primary, infants music teacher, and she was the choir teacher. Mrs. Scala, who was our principal. Jo Carolus, who was our head of school. All of Lynn Stone, Anne Johnston, all of these amazing women who were leaders and who really told us girls that we could be anything that we wanted to be. All we had to do was put our mind to it. And I think that was one of the other really important things in my education was you are a woman, you can do absolutely anything you want to do. The world is open to you to just go out there and achieve that. And that was instilled from a very early age right the way through my schooling. I think the first word that comes to mind when I think about the culture of St Catherine's is nurturing. I mentioned before that definitely something that was instilled in me here was that you can do anything that you want to do. And I think when I was here at school, there was all sorts of opportunities to nurture whatever that interest or that inkling was. It was my experience here was very holistic. I remember I was involved in every single sport. I had a lot of sport badges by the end of the year. I wasn't very good at sport, but I would get up and have a go. I played cricket from year 6 to year 12, which people still think is hilarious because they can't imagine me playing cricket. But, I had an opportunity to play such a wide range of sports, to sing, to be on the stage, to be part of musicals. It was such a well-rounded education that, really emphasised the importance of education and that success and achievement as a tool to open the doorways for whatever you wanted to do. But I think it also gave you a perspective that was really broad in terms of what you could do. There wasn't one focus that was more important than the other. And I think all of those things, I come back to that word nurtured, all of those things were nurtured in a really supportive and I guess a really supportive but also pushing for excellence, but not in a way that was really in your face and made you feel uncomfortable. It was just a light, we have high expectations and we can help you get there. I think a key moment that stands out in my schooling was being a prefect and returning to my sort of buddy class in the junior school. And our prefect group, we actually ran some leadership workshops for year 6 girls. So for me, that moment of that workshop, running a leadership workshop of year 6, having the opportunity to teach while being a prefect here at the school, that moment really set kind of the trajectory of my life and what I wanted to do. I found my year 7 capsule recently, and I found a post-it note that said I want to be a singer/teacher. And it's quite funny because I left school and I had a quite a different path planned, and I found my way to teaching in a bit of a roundabout way. It was quite bizarre because I think you have memories of what you thought you wanted to do or what you wanted to be, and it was quite amazing to open it up, and in there were some ridiculous things like a Dolly magazine of the time and a couple of lip smackers and some funny things, but there was also some really interesting reflections, and putting on a post-it note, I want to be a singer/teacher, which, as you said, is exactly kind of where my path has taken me recently. Certainly when I reflect on times when I did the wrong thing or I got in trouble, I come back to that word I use about St. Cath's of nurtured. It was always dealt with in a respectful way. It was always dealt with in a supportive way. And I think that, we were given opportunities to take risks. So school camps and our year 10 camp, which really pushed us to our limit. Year 10 camp was excruciating. It was hard. I remember tears, pathetic. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh gosh, you little princesses, So it was tough, but that was great. We got dirty, we got muddy, we got wet, we would yell at each other, we would sing songs as we were like canoeing down the river. You felt empowered by the end of it. I mean, I remember getting home and collapsing at the end of it, but we had such a strong bond because, again, we were mixed up with different young women from different groups. High school can become so about who you sit with, and it's not until you get that year 12 common room, I think, that all of a sudden those groups dissipate and you just become this really solid year 12, and that's a really special thing. But I think the year 10 camp, year 9 and 10 camps were what built some of those strong connections in the lead up to that sort of moving into the year 12 common room. So that shared struggle, and it sounds ridiculous calling it struggle, but I'm going back to that 16-year-old me and how hard I thought it was. But it was shared joy and fun and enthusiasm and empowerment, and I'm so grateful for it because the school was thinking about how we test these young women and how we stretch them and how we push them. And that's something I've definitely taken into the rest of my life.